It's a good lesson to learn from podcasting. Just about it, like you said, for anything in life, consistency is really what either gets you through it or prevents you from seeing the success. It's one of those things where there's a book called 3 Feet from Gold, and it's sort of a continuation of the Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich philosophy that, a lot of people stop right before they're about to have a breakthrough.
Welcome to the Networking with Michelle podcast, the show dedicated on providing you the how-tos of marketing and networking strategies. Here we believe in the Jim Rohn quote, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Hey, good people. Welcome back to the Networking with Michelle Gomez, back for the midweek show. I'm really stoked about this episode. I'm going to tell you now. I always like to warn you before some episodes. But today's special guest is Vernon Ross. And this brother delivers, y'all. I'm telling you right now, you need to get your pens and your paper ready, okay? And take notes. And especially if I got any podcasters listening, or if you're thinking about starting a podcast, or if you're a marketing consulting, you want to take some notes. This brother is dropping jewels at the end, okay? I was like, hey, I don't know if this episode going to be released, okay? Because man, he brought some good ideas. That's all I'm gonna tell you. He brought some good ideas, some money making ideas, and I encourage you to take them, to use them. I really feel like there's enough money out there for everybody. I don't care if you're doing graphic design, podcasting, author, speaking, products on Shopify. There is enough money for all of us out there. And I feel like he provided some valuable information. And even though we're, because he's another podcaster, and even though we were shooting the breeze as podcasters, I really want to encourage you that, whatever he says, can you take that and apply that to your skill set? Can you take that and apply it to your business, to your career? Okay. And I think lots of times we get stuck as people and you just think like, well, I'm not a public speaker, so I don't need that. Or I'm not a podcaster, so I don't need that. And the thing is, you may not be a podcaster, right? But there's a piece, there's a nugget that if you were to take that, dust it off, and be like, okay, how can I apply this to my situation? You can run with it, right? Maybe you don't need to launch a podcast as yourself, first and last name, insert yourself. But maybe you work at a startup and maybe they should do a podcast as a company. Maybe you can present it, you can lead it, right? You're in charge, but you're utilizing their resources and their funds. By all means, do so. Right? So there's money to be made also with podcasters. I'm telling you now, lots of times we get stuck. The first thing we think about is sponsorship dollars, but there's other ways to make money. I found other ways to make money through my podcast, right? And one thing I'm really kind of proud of is like I may say a sponsor or an affiliate here and there, but a lot of these major top 10 podcasts that I listen to them, so I'm not talking down on them, but we're really in this wave where the thing that we don't like about radio, that's quickly turning into podcast. And a lot of us are going to stop liking podcasts. What do I mean by that? A lot of these major podcasts are getting saturated by sponsorship / ad dollars, right? So there's 3 to 5 minutes of ads being ran or recited, before the show, the middle of the show, and then a quick reminder at the end of the show. That's what it is. I'm a marketer. I see trends. That's what it's turning to, so there's ways to monetize. Be careful on how you do it, what you do. And I really want everyone to be blessed by this episode. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Vernon Ross. His new book is out called "Master Your Message: The Guide to Finding Your Voice in Any Situation." Master your message. The guide to finding your voice in any situation. This is a good read, a quick read. I had a chance to review it before the interview. I'm fully endorsing it. And for two people that, let's see, leave an iTunes review. The two people that leave an iTunes review about this episode, specifically this episode, you do that, shoot me a screenshot, email it to me, tag me on the internet, tag me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, hey, even LinkedIn. I'll be glad to shoot this book to you. Once again, this is good for the first two people that does an iTunes review. Send me the screenshot, email it to me, get it to me, and I'll send you a copy. Master Your Message by Vernon Ross, today's special guest. This show is brought to you by Linda. So, hey, if you're trying to learn, well, you're going to learn your message on this episode. But there's other things, business, marketing, tech, graphic design. It's all on lynda.com. If you want to start your free trial, go to michellegomez.com/Linda. Click. Boom, free trial. It's already there for you, okay? Free book, free trial. Networking with Michelle, we taking care of you. We take care of our listeners, all right? Here we go, Vernon Ross. Hey everyone, today's special guest is Vernon Ross, the best in online business, social media strategy, and networking. Vernon, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Good. So, you probably don't know this, but I've actually been following you since 2015.
What?
I started podcasting in 2015, and I went to New Media Expo, and I think that was the first time
Yeah. I remember that.
I started hearing about you, and then I actually met Tanita Mullen. Shout out to her, young savvy.
Oh, yeah. Savvy and professional, right?
Yeah, there you go. I was on her show, but yeah, I met her there, and we've just been keeping in touch 2 years strong. And I was on the phone with her a couple of weeks ago, and she's always spoke highly about you, and I've always kind of, peeped in and out following you, and here we are. So thank you for making yourself available to do this interview. But yeah, I've been following your work for 2 years now.
Wow, well that is awesome. That I'm glad I've been working for 2 years and doing and didn't fade. I didn't fade, even though I haven't produced a podcast in a month. Shh, don't tell anybody. But Tanita's my girl. She is a good person to know, and I appreciate you following me. So I guess I've been doing something right, mostly.
Yeah, and congratulations on your book. I can't wait to dive into that because it's so important.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, and I mean, the work is so important because what I've realized, especially I've seen it in other areas, but maybe because I'm in the podcasting online marketing space, it's more prevalent. But, podcasting is a lot of work, and people pod fade very quickly. And I know I did Podcasters Paradise, and I was in my
John Lee Dumas.
Yeah, we're shouting out everyone today.
Entrepreneur on Fire. Episode 3063. Is that a pretty good John Lee Dumas impression?
Yes. Oh my God.
You gotta tag him so see if he appreciates that.
Oh Lord. But fortunately, I started out with accountability group, but I think I was the only person that launched my podcast. Let alone launch in a timely manner. And then, some people, they only don't even get up to 10 episodes. So yeah, it's a journey.
You know what's funny about that is I run into people all the time, and they're like, "Oh, you're a podcaster?" Yeah, I had a podcast for a while. I was like, "What? How many episodes did you get to?" And most will say, "Oh, I got to 7, or I got to 8." And I'll say, "Well, why did you stop?" And they're like, "Because it was harder work than I thought." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, "Yeah, it is hard, work sometimes." But you said a couple things that are real interesting that I want to kind of dig into, and it'll probably take you off course from what you wanted to talk about.
It's all
But
good.
it was a Facebook post that I thought was interesting, so I want this to be as valuable as an interview for you and your audience as possible.
No, well, actually, how important is consistency when it comes to anything?
It's a good lesson to learn from podcasting. Just about it, like you said, for anything in life, consistency is really what either gets you through it or prevents you from seeing the success. It's one of those things where there's a book called 3 Feet from Gold, and it's sort of a continuation of the Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich philosophy that, a lot of people stop right before they're about to have a breakthrough. And, some people will say, oh, well, how do you know breakthrough is coming? Because you've been, chipping away at it. And it's, it just seems like it's never going to happen. So giving up is not always a bad thing. I think stopping when you know and you realize that you haven't put in the work to be good at something is not bad advice. But I think most podcasters give up before they actually get into it. And you really have to love it. So, I think that's where the whole consistency, coming up with a routine, having an accountability group, and then actually following through on the homework that you actually have to do is the important part about consistency. And that's with anything, whether it's sales, whether it's podcasting, whether it's just being successful in school. Even for just, I tell my daughter all the time, look, you just got to consistently go to class. You can't, you cannot not go to class just because you're in college and you won't get in trouble if you're not there. A little bit of
freedom. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I saw that you're an adjunct professor. I'm also adjunct. And I tell my students, I'm like, you showing up is half the battle of passing the class. And you'll be surprised when you show up how much you learn that day. And then it's an accumulation that leads to the test. And obviously you need to study and do your homework or whatever that may be. But that's just filling in the gaps and creating discipline. Of course, they're looking at me like I'm crazy. But that's what I've realized. And I could talk about podcasting only and probably alienate some people. But I think now it's been discipline and consistency that has really allowed me to kind of see these small wins in life that I wasn't able to see before.
Yeah, it totally will. And, podcasting can actually open so many doors for you for podcasting. I teach as an adjunct at the University of Missouri St. Louis. As part of the Missouri University system, I think there's like 5 universities in the system. But I teach a course on podcasting, which wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for podcasting. So people at the university, I belong on their board. I serve on their board. It's the marketing department. I was invited to help them. UMSL runs the largest digital marketing conference in the Midwest now. It started off as a one-day conference. Actually, I think it may have been a half-day conference when it first started with like 50 people about 4 years ago. Now, last count, I think we had 1,900 people at this year's conference. We took over part of St. Louis Union Station and had every major social media company represented to talk about digital marketing. And my students were there recording podcasts with, podcasting equipment that they bought at my recommendations and part of my class. And I was really proud of those guys for actually showing up and then being able to podcast on the fly in a noisy environment and actually produce some good sounding content. So yeah, it's been a blessing. Everything is because of podcasting. The book, the adjunct position, new clients, new problems, all of that come from podcasting.
And the name of your book is called Master Your Message. As you stated, it's derived from podcasting and so many other experiences in life. One thing I've realized is that some people feel like, I don't need a message. I'm not an expert. I don't plan on having my own business. I'm going to, just stay here at work in this cubicle 9 to 5. I don't need a message. I don't need to put myself out there. What do you say to those type of people?
Well, there are people for everything. Businesses need to run and people need to be there doing jobs within business, but it does not mean that you don't have a message or a mission you should be following no matter what you're doing. You have to figure out what your voice is or who you are and what you stand for, or you'll stand for anything. I think there's a saying around something similar to that. If you don't stand for something, you'll stand for anything, or you'll take anything, or you do something like that. I forget what it is. I'm horribly misquoting. The fact is that if you don't have principles that you stand on, which is part of having a message to get out there to the world, you will kind of go with anything. And you'll find that, especially, African Americans in corporate America will find that if they, I go in, I do my 8 or whatever your work day is, and I leave. I don't need to socialize. I don't need to be friends with those people. You get limited in your opportunities. And a lot of that has to do with not wanting to speak up, not wanting to be alienated or judged or any other stuff like that. And I think you just have to be true to who you are. And as long as you're a professional, you know what you're doing and you're good at your craft, I think you'll excel at your craft, and you'll quickly find that either you're going to grow in an organization or you're going to outgrow an organization.
Yeah, and that's one thing I learned. And I love the fact that you put emphasis on networking, and I wrote a book on networking. And
Yay.
One thing I realized, and it's like you can't just put your head down and do your work. Like you have to build these relationships. And I really want to change the perspective of networking, because it's not always about going out to the event, but it's like, how can you play to your strengths within your environment? You need to be these relationships in order for you to get that promotion, because and I wish we put more emphasis on soft skills growing up, or at least in the education. We don't. But you're absolutely right. And I do think that person that's able to build that relationship and create that, even if it's a mini message that is linked to your personal brand, you can go very, very far in the workplace as well as out of the workplace.
Yeah. Through my own personal experience, I hate the job that I'm at. It's not the job. You go through these different stages of, I think, disdain when you start becoming franchise with corporate America. And, first you blame them, and then you're like, oh, it's the people, and, oh, it's the opportunities, and there's not enough. A lot of it has to do with decisions that you make every day to show up there. And a lot of people don't make enough decisions to do other things so that they can remove themselves from the environment or maximize their experience in the environment by honing other skills. So, when you start talking about writing a book, the whole book was because I just wanted to write a book, but I had no idea it would be published. That came through relationships and podcasting and being willing to talk to strangers. So, that's one of the things I emphasize, and I don't think I didn't put it in the book. As a matter of fact, I know I didn't. But one of the people that I met in the book, and I don't know if that may have been in her story. I'd have to go back through it and look at it specifically. Patrice Washington, you guys may know her. She is the financial voice of the Steve Harvey Morning Show, and she interned for Steve Harvey while she was in college. And then after she got out of college and was doing things in Atlanta, they just got to know each other well. I got to know her because I was at a conference and decided to have lunch with a stranger. And I do that from time to time, where I'll have breakfast with a stranger or I'll have lunch with a stranger at a conference. I will literally just walk up to someone and say, hey, are you headed to breakfast? And they're like, well, yeah. Well, let's go together. And if they say no, then I'll go to the next person. And it's a way for me to put myself out of my comfort zone. And it's a way for them to be out of their comfort zone and get to know someone, at least on somewhat of a personal level. Now we're really good friends. And I had no idea that she was going to have the amount of influence that she does. And I saw it all happen. And, she's published now. She had already written a book. And yeah, it's amazing the people that you meet and the impact that they'll have on your lives if you're willing to actually go out and talk to people.
Yeah. How long have you known her?
Going on 4 years now, actually.
So that's a while. And the reason why I ask, because sometimes I feel like when people want to network, like they want to network with someone that's already at the top. They want to network with someone based off of their title or their net worth. And I'm kind of like, okay, well, what about you're not there yet, but what about the come up?
Right?
Like, what about the come up? And I think sometimes we neglect that. But can you advise some of those people that be like, we're here now, we're both grinding it out, and your success is going to be different than mine, today and tomorrow. How can I help you? How can we collaborate today versus, oh, I need that, $1 million investment or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of parts that make up a story, and there's a podcaster named Michael O'Neill. The Solopreneur Hour. Yeah, yeah. Michael has a saying where he says, "This person's just further down the timeline than I am." And one of the things, and I've totally stolen it from him. It's in my conversations naturally now, so I'll at least credit him to it for that. But I think that anytime you want to connect with someone, you really want to try to give them more value than you're getting from the conversation, no matter what level they're at. So when you want to connect with one of those people that are at the top, what can you do for them? And it doesn't necessarily have to be significant, but I think you have to give where you ask. And I think you have to give without the expectation of getting back. And when you do it enough times, the person will recognize the fact that you're generous with what you have and will be willing to do stuff for you or with you. And even if they don't, you can still, if you're a fan, if you like what they're doing, you like the value that they're giving, there is no problem in continuing to promote them, talk about them, and eventually something will happen where that person will give back to you in a way that you probably weren't expecting. So, I mean, that's kind of, if you want to network with bigger people, that's great. Do it. I always say reach up. Don't necessarily reach across, although you should. Reach across and reach down to pull people up, but you can't pull them up. You got to help them up when they're already trying to climb, because you'll never pull the people up that are just comfortable, because they'll snatch you off if they're just dead weight. You got to okay, I'm gonna let you sit there, and when you're ready, reach your hand up, and I'm gonna pull you up and get you up to the ledge, but I can't pick you up and hold on at the same time. And I think people get stuck in that because you have your friends that you want to help, and you're moving along, and you're just a little bit further down that timeline than they are, and you want to hey, come on with me, and they're like, well, I don't know what you doing. I don't know if it's okay. It's fine. You stay right there, and I'm gonna look back again. If you got your hand up, I'm gonna pull you up with me. And the same thing, reach across to people, and it's like, hey, look, I got this opportunity. I know this person. Let me introduce you. So for people that are higher up or further down the timeline than I am, that have more influence, and I connect with them, I will look for gaps in what they don't have. So it's like, well, what are they working on right now? What stuff have they talked about that's important to them? So, I mean, if I really, really want to connect with somebody, I will look at stuff that's on them, and it's out there. What kind of pet projects are they doing? How could you involve yourself with something that they're doing so you come around on the back end? And it's a long game. It's not I'm going to do this today and then I'll make this connection tomorrow because I need this investor tomorrow, or I'm trying to get a new job, and so I'm going to connect with this person on LinkedIn, and then I'm going to ask them if I can send them my resume. No. It's not like that. It's a longer game. It may take you, weeks to months to years, depending on what you're trying to work on, to make the right connection so the person pays attention and sees that, oh, wow, this person's been consistently supporting me, watching my stuff, retweeting me, liking all my Instagram posts, commenting, working with people in the comments, which is what people should be doing right now, especially influencers on Instagram, like the bigger names. You want to impress them, talk to people in the comments that are asking for help but can't get it from them, and then offer to help those people. They will at some point see those comments, and even if they don't, you're still making connections that may put you in contact with that person. There's always ways to work the game when you're networking. You just got to be willing to give without the expectation of getting back.
Yeah, it's definitely a long-term game. What advice, on the flip side of that, what advice do you have for that person that's struggling with the imposter syndrome and how they can move past that fear in order for them to, just speak up, publish a book, or just get their voice out in any medium?
Yeah. The fear tells you you're headed in the right direction. If you feel like you're a fraud, that means that you're moving forward outside of your comfort zone. Because I feel like that all the time. It never goes away. It's like, what in the hell am I doing here? This is not happening. And it's like, where am I? Oh, this is too good to be true. And when you start feeling like that, you have to tell yourself, okay, the fact that I'm uncomfortable means that I'm outside of my comfort zone and that you're doing the right thing. So, when you start thinking about, oh man, I'm just impersonating John Lee Dumas and on his podcast. No, you're not. You're doing your thing your way because nobody's going to do it like you. So, I had a very successful businessman tell me, and this guy saw me grow up, tell me that, oh, well, podcasting's oversaturated. So yeah, I've been on a few podcasts, but nah, it's oversaturated. And I'm like, well, I said, let me give you this perspective, because you really don't want to tell people that they're wrong in any situation. You're like, well, okay, that's great. Let me give you this perspective. There are millions, probably a few billion blogs out there, but there's 1 point so many million, almost probably 2 billion people on Facebook, but everybody's on Facebook. So there's only a few 100,000, maybe a couple million. Let's say even if it was 5 or 10 million podcasts, and then less than that are active and that are producing good content. So I would much rather be in a space where I can know that I can compete and quickly get up to the top before all the big brands and all the big names get in and they drown me out, which is already starting to happen. Because the bigger brands are realizing that, hey, I can get in there too and do that. But, he was like, well, yeah, it's oversaturated. I'm like, no, it's not oversaturated. It's just that you have to have the right message at the right time, delivering to the right audience. And that's how you make podcasts count as far as leverage. I think that sort of answers that question, but I think I got off track.
It's okay. Do you think if you niche down, it allows your voice to resonate louder?
It can. There was a part in there where I talked about why I resisted the niche. Because it's like, I don't have just one thing to talk about. I got a lot of stuff to talk about, and I do a lot of stuff, and I'm interested in a lot of stuff. And why do I have to limit myself to one thing? I'm a multipreneur. Marie Forleo says that, the whole multipreneur thing. And I'm like, well, you know what? The problem is that when you try to be good at everything, you end up being okay at everything, but not really, really good at anything.
No, I think I'm right there with you. I've been struggling with that for the past 2 to 3 years that I've been in business. And especially with something so broad with social media and networking, social media with so many platforms and networking, I'm like, well, everyone needs to network. But
Exactly.
But I've had people like, well, I'm in the medical field. And I'm like, it's still politics. It's still a business. It still applies. But I mean, there's people that, argue, I guess, either sides when it comes to that.
There are. And, I think that I'm one of them. I'm like, I'm a social media expert. I'm not a Facebook expert. I'm not a Twitter expert. I'm a social media expert. So I can tell you about every platform. But, when I started really digging into it, and I do, digital marketing consulting and stuff like that, it was like, well, you can be a general expert, but you do have to really have a network where you're like the practitioner of, that you can do more for your clients. I think on one, like pick a network where you're strongest, focus on that skill. And when that skill is where it needs to be, you'll have to continue to, keep it up to date, but then you can focus on another network. And a great example of that is Gary Vaynerchuk. He was heavy into Twitter, like super heavy into Twitter. And then when Twitter became really, really noisy and his influence started dying down on Twitter, he went to Snapchat. Now he's an investor in Snapchat, but that was where he was really, really pushing it for about 6 months. He was all Snapchat. Now he's pushing Instagram. He's still on all those platforms, Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. And he went really heavily into Facebook, like right after Twitter, before Snapchat. And I talked to him on my podcast about Instagram almost 2 years before he really, really started focusing on it. But he was like, that's the next thing. And now he's all about Instagram. And even Carlos Gil just recently put in a Facebook post that he was pivoting from Snapchat, and he's known for Snapchat. and doing more on Instagram. So you have to go where the attention is. So when you start talking about niche down where the attention is, because that's the only thing that matters. The platform isn't really that important at all. If the attention was on Tumblr, I'd be all over Tumblr.
We're not going to tell no one that.
Right. And I still talk about MySpace from time to time because it was the best.
No, but you're absolutely right. And I think what I've realized over the past year, I made a decision to double down on Instagram. My followers have grown. I've been doing a lot more video. I made the decision to double down on my podcast. My listeners have grown. They doubled from April to May. My listeners doubled. And then I have people asking me, how do I start a podcast? How do I become a guest? And it's like, and I've been avoiding it. I'm like, well, I'm not a professional I'm not a consultant.
Yes,
I just have a podcast. And I'm like, wait a minute.
You're professional.
And I was like, wait, I'm actually making money from this and I'm not promoting it as a service. But I've been able to niche down. More importantly, I've been able to double down. I've been able to craft my avatar, therefore it goes to my message in order for me to offer these services. And whether it's the ROI, whether it's revenue or the followers on the social media side, it's kind of like once I made that decision and I follow the steps, everything has fell into place.
Yeah. And it will. I resisted the whole podcasting thing. Surprisingly enough, being a podcaster, I'm like, no, I want to do it. I'm not. Episode number 8 of my podcast, Andrew Warner dug into my butt about why don't you have a course? I was supposed to be interviewing him and it ended up being therapy for me. I had to go lay down after the episode. He kicked my butt. He really did. And it was a dream to have him on there, but I just took some action and got him on and followed some of Jamie Tardy's advice, another podcaster. And I'm like, well, okay. Yeah. And so I put together a podcasting course and then I gave it away. I actually gave it to a friend of mine. I'm like, here, take this because you're doing this. And she turned it into a course and uses it for clients and has made almost $100,000 off of it. But y'all, yeah. But it was just something I just didn't want to do. I'm like, everybody's launching a damn podcast course. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. I even have a Thinkific built on podcasting, a course right now on Thinkific that I don't have published on podcasting. And as I kept trying to pull further and further away from it, things in my world kept pulling me closer and closer to it. And that's part of that whole resisting the desire to niche down because I didn't want to be put into a box. Nobody puts baby in a corner. And I'm like, well, I'm not in a corner. This is what I know. You have to be willing, I think, sometimes to accept your expertise as a professional and know that you're doing something at a level that people are seeing. Wow, I want to do that at that level. Can you teach me how to do it? And that's the part I think people have a hard time accepting. I had a hard time accepting the fact that over the past 3 years, I've gained enough knowledge in this area to tell people, number one, how to grow a podcast, how to monetize a podcast, how to get listeners for your podcast, how to be consistent, all the things that are around the success of podcasting, because I followed the most successful people that I could find in podcasting and then did what they did and put my own thing on it. I'm actually an expert in podcasting, so much so that I got asked to teach it at a university level. I'm like, okay, I'm teaching master's degree students to podcast. I need to quit tripping. And so I'm teaching podcasting. So, it's one of those things. Yes, I think you have to niche down. I'm glad you doubled down on it. I'm glad you doubled down on getting more listeners to your podcast because you should be growing your show. That's the number one way that you can change things that people do and literally help people get to the next level. And there's nothing more rewarding than somebody coming up to you and saying, hey, this helped me so much. And listening to, episode blah, 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 or somebody stopping you because they recognize your voice. And the first time that happens, if it hasn't happened to you, you're going to be like, holy crap, that was weird. That was weird.
I want to focus on something because obviously, I mean, we're talking about it. You've been in the podcasting community for a while, and I went through Podcasters Paradise where immediately we're introduced to sponsorships, but you can't get the sponsors without getting the numbers up there. However, my numbers they didn't come out the gate high and all that kind of stuff. However, I've been able to find other ways to monetize, whether it's my podcast or my message, quote unquote. Because sometimes I think we get stuck when it comes to monetization, and you didn't want to do a course, which is fine. You gave it to a friend. She's been able to maximize that. But do you think you teaching the actual course at the university level has been more fulfilling than teaching an online course?
It has to a point. I think because I know I can see them take action, and I didn't want to be another person that was launching a course and then people weren't actually doing the stuff that they were supposed to be doing. But here's the interesting part. What you said about the fact that you found other ways to monetize your podcast. And a lot of the podcasters out there will tell you, oh, well, you need to be at about, 6,000 listeners per download or, per episode in order to really get sponsorship. Yeah, to get big sponsors, you got to be somewhere around that. But the thing is that you can't think global when you're just starting. Think about this. You have a show, and there's still a mystique around I have a show. Oh, really? You have a show? Oh, so yeah, I have a show. I talk about podcasting. I talk about, or, whatever you're talking about. I talk about digital marketing, social media. I talk with industry influencers and leaders and CEOs and stuff like that about how they implement podcasting in their businesses, how they grow, and their origin story, how they got to where they are. People are like, oh, really? Oh, my God. Like, who are some of the people you've talked to? And so I will tell them who some of the people are, that I've spoken with. And they're, oh my God, really? And I'm like, yeah, really. And and because of that, you can go to a local business and say, hey, I have a podcasting about wine. I talk about wine. I talk about alcohol. I talk about, college this or I talk about finance or anything like that. And you can go to them and say, hey, I'm not going off just my downloads. And it was funny. I was at a conference, actually Podfest in Florida, and was on stage with a couple of other podcasting companies. And I was representing Podbean. Disclaimer, I actually do some enterprise sales stuff for Podbean as a client. So they're a client of mine. And we were talking about podcast sponsorship. And apparently I was supposed to be following slides and didn't realize it and just went totally off rails on podcast monetization. And I was like, I think the whole industry has it wrong. And that was the first thing I said. And everybody's like, what is going on? And I'm like, it's great that you can stitch in advertisements, with Blog Talk Radio. That's great. It's great at a marketplace and all this other stuff. But look, I'm here with Podbean, and Podbean has an advertiser marketplace, and it's great. And you can get in there, and if you find a sponsor, align yourself with it, and it's good. You can do patronage and have people just, donating to your show, and you can raise money that way. But what about your local area? Take what your podcast talks about and call 10 businesses. Get on the phone and sell some advertising. That's how you monetize a podcast. And you can tell them my listenership has the potential. You can do it like radio advertising. There are, podcast listenership has grown by 30% year on year. And I have the potential reach of a couple 100,000, but don't just count your podcast download numbers because that's silly. You put your podcast on a website, you get website visits. Count your website visits because usually your website's a blog. Hey, that means there's space for them to advertise on your blog and on your podcast. You can stick them there. You can talk about them pre-show, post-show, mid-show, however you want to do it. I only do pre-roll, which is the first 10 seconds, 15 seconds of your podcast, and post-roll up to about a minute. Mid-roll is where a lot of people do that, where they interrupt the show and then put in an ad. I don't like that because I think it breaks up the flow of the show. And you can make money by talking to local businesses and saying, hey, I want to represent your business on here. It costs this much and you have to advertise for this long. And if you're afraid to ask for a lot of money, say, hey, it's $50 a month if you want to start that low. But I would say, hey, start at $1,500. Make it actually work. Say, hey, to advertise on the podcast, you can get in early. It's $1,500 a month. You have to commit to 3 months because it's going to take a minute before you start seeing stuff. What I need from you is, and then say, hey, I need a landing page. If we're going to do this via the web where people can go so that we know that they're hitting this landing page, or I need a special short link. Can you do that? If you can't, then maybe that's another little piece of consulting work that you can help them do that. Or let's have a bounce back coupon where if they come in and they mention that they heard it on the show, you let me know how many people come in and say that. And all you have to do is say, hey, Steve's dry cleaning. I know, guys, I'm not a dry cleaning podcast, but if you are in the, local St. area, Steve's blah, blah, blah over here, just mention my show and you're going to get 20% off your next order. Make sure you check out Steve's. That's all you got to do. It's radio. So I tell people, that do it that way. There's so many ways to monetize the podcast. Books, your own stuff. If you're running a conference, I can go on. You've heard me. I just keep on talking about podcasting and monetization. You can sell so much stuff on your podcast. It's crazy. Affiliate programs. I didn't even get into that.
Yeah. I've signed up with Commission Junkie, aka CJ, or vice versa, CJ.com. So that's been something. Amazon, Audible. I just finished my media kit. I just updated it yesterday, to be honest with you, 4 sponsorships. And I actually feel like you just chastised me, actually, because initially I was like, Michelle, you can do the local stuff, right? But I veered off from that. I ignored that. But what I've been doing lately, because I'm in Houston, I've been interviewing a lot of more Houston entrepreneurs or creatives. So those episodes will be great to tie into a local business. So I need to do better on reaching out to small business owners in Houston, especially for those specific episodes.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Great.
The thing is, here, think about this. When you interview a guest, find out where they are. Hey, what state are you in? Oh, you're here. Okay. That's another opportunity for you to contact businesses in that area and say, hey, I just interviewed this social media influencer that's from Houston, and this episode is going to be going live. Did you want to jump in on the advertisement? It's $1,500 to jump in, but I'll give you 3 months. I'll also put a link on my site that goes back to whatever landing page you wanted to go back to, and I'll track that because it'll have a short link. So you use something free like Pretty Link. That's your site name / their business name. Make it a permanent, redirect. And all you got to do is just plug the URL in Pretty Link. It's simple. In WordPress, if you're using WordPress, Squarespace and Wix both have those same things where you can use a URL shortener to track how many people are actually clicking on the link thing, and you can send them that as a report. You got to just be willing to make the money. It's out there.
Put yourself out there. Gotta master your message and put yourself out there.
That is right. And since you mentioned that, and I know we're going long. If it's okay with you, I want to talk a little bit more about this because there was an interesting Facebook post. So I know there's a guy. His name's Kamazi Constable. He used to be on Starve the Doubts podcast. Does a lot of other stuff, consulting, all this other stuff. Whether you like him or not, doesn't really matter. But Kamazi does a ton of corporate consulting now. Overseas, travels all over the place, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in revenue. One of the things that he talked about in this Facebook post is how he's had probably 4 or 5 requests from companies that he's consulted with to come in and teach their people about podcasting. And they're paying him thousands of dollars to do it.
Wow.
Now, that's something for you to think about as a podcaster. What companies in my area could I go into that may want to launch a podcast? And I'm not talking about, the dry cleaner size or the small business. What major businesses in your area have marketing departments that you could call on and say, hey, I'm a local podcaster. I teach podcasting. to corporate folks. And I'd love to come in and talk with your marketing department or your training and development department about how they can launch a podcast or just improve the audio for your internal training programs. What kind of equipment are you using now? And then you can set up a thing with B&H or BSW or one other big retailers out there. I mean, heck, you could do it with Guitar Center if you wanted to, or even Best Buy, and say, okay, this is the equipment list that I recommend you get for your recording, for your internal training. All big companies have internal training. They have training and development organizations, and usually they have a crappy audio set up just to go in and do that and then tell them how to set up for podcasting. I mean, it's a win-win, and you could charge them, oh, my day rate is $3,000, and we'll go over everything you need to know in an 8 to 10 hour day, and your people will be ready. And then we could do a maintenance of, it's $1,000 a month. I come in for a half day, review stuff with you, go over some best practices, critique some of your stuff, and help you publish this thing internally. I mean, there's so much money out there to be made if you really digging into how can I monetize my podcast, but not necessarily online, and get away from the online marketing space. It floors me how much money is out there.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think I'm going to have to save this episode to myself. I'm like, wait a minute. Giving away too much good stuff. No, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, I give it all away. Because, that's the thing. Give it away. It's not how I'm not going to make money off of people. And you know what the thing is? People won't do it. So a lot of people won't do it. They won't put in, just like they won't continue to podcast. And I'm so proud of you that you have. They won't do it. Hey, here's the money. Here's the money right here. Go get it.
People are afraid of work. And the thing is, like, you listed a bunch of good stuff, right? And I may take it. I may try it. It may not work for me. It may work for me, And I think that's the thing. It's such a good idea. People hold on to it. Well, every idea is $1 million idea. So they hold on to it. But it's like everything is not for you. It's not suited for you. So don't hoard it.
Right.
Someone else can benefit from it.
Exactly.
Yeah, try it. And if it doesn't, share it. Share your experience, because you never know what else is going to lead from that.
And if it doesn't, readjust and try it again.
Yeah. No, that's great insight. And I think the funny thing is, 2 years ago when I just started, I was actually trying to talk to NBC Black about starting a podcast. I was like, y'all have the content, like, turn it into audio. And she was just like, I think I need to learn how to provide a lot more education. And I was new at that time. But she didn't see it. She was like, I know. She's like, are you sure? And I'm like, y'all have the content. Like, you have the blog, you have the written, you have the video. Why not the audio?
Was this face-to-face or was this on the phone?
No, this was face-to-face. This was at a conference in 2015.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And she's like, yeah, we're trying to start one. We're talking about it. But, I think it's one of those things. I could go back now because I feel comfortable. But,
Have they done it yet?
No.
Oh, you got to. That's your business. Go get it.
Go get it.
Go claim that. Are they in Houston or are they in New York?
No, either New York or DC.
So you should get her on the phone. And you know what I would do in this situation? This is a good one. It's hard for people to say no when you give it to them as already produced content. So one of the ways that you can sell video services, graphic services, stuff like that, produce the thing that you're talking about and then send it to the person before you talk to them about doing it. Say, hey, I want to set up for a phone call, but I produced something for you that I think you guys need to do. And then that could set you up for going in and actually doing it. So I would record an episode. I would take an article and just read it. Because people talking about, I don't have any content. I don't know what to say on my podcast. I'm like, what are you talking about?
On that.
I'm like, go read some articles. And then comment on them. That's all most shows are. I'm like, do you watch Jimmy Fallon? I mean, he has a group of writers that comes up with jokes. Some of them are good. Some of them are not. But any show, I mean, they're really just talking about the news. So
it's just perspective. It's insight. I mean,
right.
It's a short commentary before you share that link on Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be like, hey, welcome to the NBC Black Podcast. And today we're going to be talking about Get Out. It's the movie that everybody's talking about. And there's so much controversy about this movie. And you guys are going to love what we have to say. And that would be all I would record. And I was like, I'm just going to say Michelle, but I don't know her name. But Michelle, you guys could totally do this. And I should be the one coming in and helping you guys do it. What kind of budget do you have to put behind podcasting right now? And then boom, there you go.
And that's yeah.
It gets the conversation started.
It definitely does. But I like one thing I have learned recently from Jamie Tardy's podcast, because before I would like send proposals out and then, it would be hit and miss on scheduling the phone call. So now I schedule the phone call. And then once we say hello, oh, I just emailed this to you. And then I go over that proposal or that media kit with them. And then I walk them through that. So I think your idea is just an extension of that.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. And I'm lazy, so I don't doing proposals.
Oh, yeah.
If I can record an audio and show it to them, they're like, oh, wow, this is what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it. Let's talk about it. Let me do the first episode for you, see if you guys like it. We don't even have to launch it. You can create a free account on XYZ place. I mean, you could use bumpers. You could use, why is the name escaping me? There's another audio network that I'm on it all the time. Anchor. You use Zcash. You can use it. I mean, I wouldn't recommend like turning them onto a free platform, but what I would do, depending on the hosting that you're on, is just upload the episode and don't publish it and then show it to them. It's like, this is what you guys could be doing. And then you put a little bit of staff behind it. Now I come in and train everybody how to do it, and you're off to the races. And now you've got this other media property that you can use the content that you're already producing to go through. It's just so valuable for them to do, and they really should do. And I think you should be the one delivering it to them. Let me know if you need help with it. I'll definitely jump on the phone.
Hey, I have no problem sharing the wealth. And then I guess hopefully one last question,
as much as you want.
Because I did start off with social media management, and I would ask my clients or potential clients, I'm like, what's your number one problem with social media? And they're like, I don't know what to say. And then, so I've actually been focusing on content marketing. So how important is it to produce content regardless of the medium, regardless podcasting, blogging? I think a lot of people are stuck on that, where they're creating these businesses, products, and services, but they're not informing, educating, no content whatsoever. Can you speak on that?
Well, I think you said it perfectly. Your content needs to inform and educate. And one of the easiest ways to do it is to take a look at what's being produced as far as content in the industry and how you can document it. Documenting what's going on is a whole lot easier than producing new stuff. So, I mean, that's one of the ways. So if you're talking about a brand, depending on the brand, and they're trying to, grow their social media following, they should be focusing on, of course, on Instagram and Facebook right now, a little bit on Snap, but they can document what's going on instead of trying to come up with new content that's innovative. That just document what you're doing. I mean, the TV, I hate to jump on the Gary bandwagon all the time. I mean, I like him, I'm a fan, know him, but he just documents his day as a CEO working, and people eat it up and they love it. And he talks about the stuff that he's doing. He gives advice. Grant Cardone is another one. He does the same thing. Damon John is another one. He's starting to do it. There's a guy named Dre Baldwin. He's a professional basketball player, huge on Snapchat. That's all he does all day is talk about his 3 or 4 books, a little bit of business advice, and then it's back to his 3 or 4, and even has a daily podcast that he's doing where he just pretty much repeats the same thing that he's been saying all day. Because no matter how much you think is out there, nobody knows who you are.
Whew. Yeah.
Nobody knows you. You got to keep putting it out there daily. So yes, content creation is vital to your success in any way. If you're having blocks with content creation, document the stuff that's going out there. Just document what's going on. So let people know, oh yeah, this is this, this is that, this is this.
All right. Is there anything that I'm missing?
No, you're not missing. I think you're well ahead of the game.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So how can everyone get in touch with you? Buy the book, Master Your Message?
So if you go out to vernonross.com/book, there's a page there, there's a video, and there are a bunch of links for Amazon, 800 CEO Reads, did I say Barnes and Noble? Yeah, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. Pretty much anywhere books are sold, you'll be able to find the book. The book launches on June 20th, so you guys should be able to go and get it now. Pre-orders are actually shipping within about 4 days because it's on, the book is only a few days away. It launches on the 20th, so even if you pre-order it now, you'll get the book immediately. And that's something that you should know if you're publishing a book on Amazon. 30 days before the book is out, pre-orders start going out so people can actually, get it and post it to Amazon, because it definitely helps with Amazon and their ordering. Also, a little thing that I just learned as an author, if you want people to order multiple copies of your book and you want them to do it online, have them do it at 800 CEO Reads versus Amazon. Because if I order 10 books and I order them from Amazon, it's one book sale. Yeah. Now you get the money, but it's one book sale according to BookScan numbers because they don't break out the individual books as a sale. 800 CEO Reads does. So if you order 10 books from there, it's 10 book sales on the BookScan numbers versus Amazon, which is one. Isn't that something? That's crazy. I just found that out. I'm like, okay.
No, I literally met with a book launching strategist yesterday. Because I'm about to release a book in a couple of months. Yeah, but I mean, what you just said is gold, and I'm actually going to email this to her.
Ask her if she knows. A lot of time, most people don't know, especially when you're self-publishing. You want those BookScan numbers up there as much as you can, especially during launch. So it's like, order from 800 CEO Reads, please. Or if you don't care about the BookScan numbers, you get them directly and then you just resell them. But the only advantage to Amazon is that you will go up in the Amazon rankings if you care about that. But, my biggest thing, and one of the roadblocks, I'll pull back the curtains a little bit, for me is crafting this message more for the corporate environment. Because, it's great to be branding and social media, but they're branding and social media experts. And here's a little insight. Every company has one now.
Right.
They all got branding and social media experts. They're not going to hire you to come in and talk about branding and social media.
Right.
I mean, I literally just got that from a marketing coach that I'm working with. He goes, dude, you realize every company's got branding people, right? I'm like, yeah. Social media people. Like, yeah. He's like, why would they hire you to come in? They're already paying them. He's like, you got to use the book more.
That's true. That's true. And are you familiar with Jonathan Sprinkles?
Yeah, I know Jonathan Sprinkles, the connection coach.
Yeah, okay.
Connection is key. Yeah, I know stuff.
Okay, yeah, because I know he has his presentation power in July coming up.
Oh, is that in Houston? Does he always do it in Houston?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely a good one to know. I've been following him for years.
Yeah, and I've attended his event twice. I'm not going to go this year, but he really does help you get your message together. And I think lots of times people may have their message read on paper, but they have a hard time articulating it. And then he's great at that, obviously, with presentation power. Yeah,
the biggest thing I've figured out is people don't, and it's a quote, it's actually in the book, but people don't know you until they know you. So you can show them the person that you actually want to be every time you meet them. I used to tell my kids that all the time. It's like, look, every time you go to a new environment, it's an easy way to make new friends, and they don't know who you be, who you want to be. Every day is a new opportunity. Okay, you got in trouble today. Tomorrow, it won't matter. It's a new day. Every day is a new day. Every day the sun comes up. So you can forget your mistakes from yesterday, because that's exactly where they are. Unless you got a time machine, you can't go back and change them. So you move forward.
Okay, so let's go back. Get the book.
Yes, totally got off track.
Get the book, Master Your Message, on Amazon. Oh, but I did want to say this. For anyone that leaves a review for this episode, I will mail you a copy of the book, Master Your Message. So we'll do that for the first 2 people. You leave a review on iTunes about this specific episode. I will mail you a copy of the book, Master Your Message. And that's for the first 2 people.
See, I need to do that. I haven't done that yet. Do that. That is good. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll order that today. We try to get it in over here.
Hey, that's what's up. So yeah, to find me online, vernonross.com, at RossPR on Twitter, at RossPR on Snapchat, at RossPR on Instagram, and Vern Ross on Facebook. So VENROSS on Facebook, because Twitter won't give me my name. Some dude in China that hasn't tweeted since like 2011 has it.
Don't you hate?
Yeah, and I'm like, your name's not Vernon Ross. No, that's not your name. That is not the name your mama gave you. That's not your name. I even contacted him on LinkedIn and he will not give it up. I'm like, dude, I will pay you. Give me my name. Like, nope. So until I become Twitter verified, I'm stuck. So at Ross.
Oh God. All right, y'all. Appreciate you listening to the free consultation, the vending session, all of the above.
all of it.
Get the book, Master Your Message. Remember, I believe in you. A personal connection leads to an influential network. So thanks for networking with Michelle.